So I want to welcome you today to something to talk about at the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center. And today we are going to talk about recycling, which is both a veteran activity. We've been doing it for many years and seems to be also new all the time. And to help us with that, we have a couple of folks from Zero Waste, Bainbridge Zero Waste Bainbridge, which is part of Sustainable Bainbridge, Diane, Landry, and Barbara Ochota. And I want to thank you both for coming. And I hope that we can talk a little bit about not only what the changes are right now, what is being recycled or what isn't being recycled that was, but also some ways that we might be able to recycle some of those harder to recycle things that may not be accepted at curbside, but we can still take out of the waste stream so they don't end up just having to be buried. So welcome, Barbara and Diane.
Thank you.
Diane, let's start with you just because I know that you have been working this issue for an awful long time. Can you tell us a little bit about what items are currently not available to be recycled that we might think could be recycled at through Bainbridge disposal?
Well, in your introduction, you mentioned you want to clear up, what had been recycled and what is now not being recycled. So Kitsap published an article, which I think is the impetus for this presentation today. And they sort of jumped the gun of the official announcement. So I've, been talking to Kitsap Solid Waste and Bainbridge Disposal. And Kitsap Solid Waste has had the same recycling poster for 10 years, over 10 years. They tried to take the milk cartons off the list a few years ago because they know that those have not been getting recycled. Paper cartons have a plastic lining. They have, for people think it's wax, but it's not. For 20, 30 years, it's been a plastic lining. There are only a couple mills, pulping mills, which is the process you have to do to get the paper in a form where it can be recycled. There are only a couple that can actually separate the plastic lining from the paper. That's not where our paper milk cartons go. Those are more East Coast facilities, Midwestern. So Caitlin Newman, the recycling coordinator for Kitsap County, told me yesterday that she's talked with other people. They've been to these pulping mills. They see this pile of milk cartons that are set to go to the landfill because they aren't able to go through the pulping process. So it doesn't make sense for us to ask you to put it in recycling when it's going to end up in the trash anyway. So just shortcut the process and put it in your trash to begin with. So that's the story behind that. And a similar story for the freezer food boxes. They have an additive, it's called a wet strength additive, which keeps the paper from becoming soggy in freezers because of the moisture absorption. And again, it's hard to separate that, to get the paper fibers out from that wet strength additive. So it's another case of where instead of having the pulp mill having to throw it away, we should just do it at home. So those things are coming off the list. There's another reason to take them off, which is to try to make things, and again, it alludes to what you said in the introduction, Reed, to make things more uniform, to make the recycling rules more the same from community to community. So for example, the city of Tacoma just went through, according to Caitlin, a really thorough, thoughtful process of what will be on their acceptables list for recycling. And these things that Kitsap has now taken off, city of Tacoma has taken off. And all of our stuff goes to the same MRF, the same material recoveries facility, which is where all our recycling goes, where it gets sorted, put into the can bales, the milk jug bales, the paper bales. City of Tacoma goes to the same MRF. And they've taken the milk cartons and frozen food boxes off their list too. So that's the story on those recyclables.
Okay, and sort of the underlying challenge, it seems to me, we talked about this before COVID, was that in previous years, we had, I remember when I was in high school, we had the beginning of a recycling industry. And some of that was undercut by the Chinese willingness to import basically all kinds of recyclables or quasi-recyclables. And so a lot of recycling products, recycling industries in the US sort of faded away for a while there. We're now in a position of having to figure out how to recycle most of our products at home here domestically, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, China has a really growing middle class, and they've found that they can get the recyclables they need from their own people and not have to import it. So that's what's been happening. And so then, I mean, our recyclers tried to find other markets overseas and succeeded in some cases. They couldn't take the quantities that China could, but it's a matter too of like, what are the regulations for recycling in those countries? You know, what sorts of pollutants are allowed in the recycling process? Are we just, sending, are we just creating bigger problems, more pollution by sending recyclable products overseas too? So that's another consideration for keeping it domestic versus
right. And I'm wondering about the the long-term value. One of the things that is frustrating to me is that we don't in this country require most manufacturers of most products to consider the life of the product and help with both packaging things in ways that could be recycled, or helping to develop industries to capture some of the packaging on the other end of the product stream. Do you feel like that might be changing at all in this country, or are we looking at in the long term trying to develop a commercial industry based on sort of what the profit and loss value is for particular recycling products?
Barbara, do you want to say something first?
Well, just that there is sort of growing energy and attempts at legislation for EPR, extended producer responsibility, to address just that kind of issue. Because as it is, these producers, package things however is convenient and cheap for them. And then as consumers, it's our responsibility to deal with their garbage. So there are lots of conversations going on in various environmental communities about the need to make the producers deal with their own stuff. A good example of that would be the styrofoam. I think a lot of people just take that to landfill, and Kitsap County does a collection typically twice a year. So the one on Bainbridge is just what we do as volunteers. And it's a huge amount. And so here we are as citizens cleaning up the debris from an industry that's not being held accountable. And just FYI, if you're curious, all of that stuff all the styrofoam that we collect goes over to Kent to a plant that actually processes it, it chops it up, melts it, extrudes it into these blocks, and that's sold to businesses that make picture frames and crown molding and that kind of thing. So it actually is recycled, but not without a lot of effort on the part of the people who either receive it in their packaging or help try and recycle it.
And at this point, it is a situation where you need to be thoughtful enough to store this until either the county or volunteers like yourself have a drive to collect it, right?
Exactly right.
Are there other products that are like that we might want to think about putting a part of our garage aside for, that have infrequent or are more difficult to recycle items, but certainly could be recycled occasionally?
Well, plastic film is a great example of that. I think people think they confuse recycling with meaning only curbside recycling. So styrofoam is recyclable and has value to the business that processes it, just like many plastic films do. You know, like, but we can only recycle those at Safeway and T&C, and those end up going to trucks, which makes composite decking.
So define what plastic film is, so we know what to save and what we can't.
Okay, we're actually doing a farmers market booth this Saturday, and we're going to have handouts there. And we have a document on our website that is really specific about what you can and what you can't put into plastic film. So you can put into the recyclable film plastic. It has to be clean and dry. It'd be plastic bags, bubble wrap. You cannot recycle saran wrap because it's got another chemical in there that can't go through the Trex process. Diane, do you have more? You have a better memory than I do.
Generally, it's the kind of film where this is a bread bag, if you push your finger, it stretches. That's generally the test for it, except there are some exceptions, like the grapes at the supermarket with the bags that have the holes in. That's a different kind of plastic, but it's stretchy. And then there's cereal bags, which you wouldn't think would be stretchy, but they do qualify for that recycling.
So no,
yes,
no grape bags, but yes, cereal bags.
Yes.
Okay.
I know.
But there's like Barbara said, there's a long list, because we verified this with Trex. Whenever there's a material we wonder about, we email Trex and ask, and then they let us know yes or no if it should be on that list.
So I will put a link in the description in the YouTube video of this discussion, and also if I have your email address and you're attending, I will send the link to you as well. So, and of course, show up at Farmers Market on Saturday.
That would be great.
So, yeah, go ahead, Barbara.
So this is, we've made a chart which we can give handouts out, or we're going to have a QR code so people can just take a picture with their phone and access it at any time. So we've got what's acceptable and what's not. So the compostable bags are not recyclable. Biodegradable compostable bags are not recyclable in plastic film.
Right, but you could put them in a commercial compostable recycling, probably
as long
not.
as you don't tie a knot.
Ah,
I know there's so many details. It's just crazy making, isn't it?
yeah, it is crazy making, because you you want to do a good job, but then you end up with like, oh my gosh, how many knotted compost bags have I put in commercial recycling?
Exactly.
And I don't know whether there are, I mean, it sounds like to some degree what you're talking about in terms of political change, like the extended producer responsibility, are ways that we as a society might in the long term be able to sort of change the picture. In the short term, we just have to do the best job we can. And I'm sure that that makes some difference. It certainly would reduce the amount of trash that Bainbridge Island itself might send to the trench in, where is it, Oregon? Yeah.
Columbia originally.
Well, you know, one thing I found over the course of being involved in this work is that it really influences what decisions I make every time I buy something. You know, I don't buy anything that comes in clamshells anymore because they're not recyclable. So it really has changed my thinking.
And that's another thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Diane.
At the farmers market, Barbara's going to have a display of things that she buys that are not packaged in plastic compared to, you know, things that people normally would buy that are in plastic.
Oh,
so it's a
I'll be right back.
That too. It's like shampoo and dishwashing detergent and clothes washing detergent. And so
yeah, so we could do a lot by trying to look for opportunities to buy in bulk, for example, and use a product so that we're getting stuff in a product that we know we either are reusing or we know can be recycled.
So let me show you. This is laundry detergent.
Cool.
And I know. And it comes in just a tiny little envelope. And it was such a relief when I got the first order of these, because I looked at that big plastic jug and thought, I don't ever have to buy or dispose of these again. You know, I just don't want to participate in that cycle.
So I guess a bigger point then is recycling can be all well and good, but the better thing to do is reduce in the first place, because when you recycle, you're putting energy, water, you're using greenhouse gases, putting those into the atmosphere by recycling. If you can just not have it in the first place, that's better.
So just suck it up and don't buy those packaged bins of triple washed lettuce, huh?
Which I admit I still sometimes buy when it's in the middle of winter and the unpackaged lettuce heads just are so tiny and going bad already that I buy the other, actually.
So if anybody who's on has a question, a specific question or topic, please open your microphone and just shout it out, because we may not be covering what you came on here to learn about. So I'm wondering, you mentioned, Diane, that that Kitsap is using the same list that they've used for years. Is your website the best place if I wanted to get the most current information about all these vagaries of recyclables, or is there another resource you might point out?
Is that Zero Waste? I'm sorry, I missed.
Yeah, Zero Waste.
Okay. Yeah. No,
So when Kitsap is finalizing their new poster, their new website list, and they're hoping to have that done by August or September. And when they do, they're actually considered the educational outreach arm for Bainbridge Disposal. And so they will pass that information on to Bainbridge Disposal. Sometimes it takes them longer to get things up on their website. So when it's official, the newspaper article that came out was they sort of jumped the gun, because Kitsap Solid Waste wasn't ready to make an official announcement about these items that were coming off the recycling list. So that's why there's no updated poster or website list yet.
but in the meantime, we shouldn't put milk cartons in our
right, because they weren't getting recycled before anyway.
Yeah,
so just take them up. And if you live in a multifamily facility and you have one of the plastic corrugated posters outside on your in your communal recycling area, just take a Sharpie and cross off the milk cartons and cross off the frozen food wording in the box category.
Yeah, and they also said that pizza boxes, which I used to put in my compost, they said that they don't want those in the compost anymore. They want that in the garbage. Is that, did I read that incorrectly?
Yes, no, you read that correctly. And I talked with Caitlin about that, the recycling coordinator, because she's fine. Where our compost goes to a facility and in that's called North Mason Fiber, just outside the county limits, in Bremerton, outside of Bremerton. That compost facility has never really liked taking anything but yard waste.
Oh,
it doesn't really like taking food, but it will, because we don't send a whole lot of food out there. It's never really wanted the cardboard from the pizza boxes and some other things. So on the official list that's coming out, they'll be saying, plant waste as usual, food waste, napkins and paper towels, and I guess coffee filters. Those will be the items that are accepted. They're taking off like shredded paper, which I guess a lot of people, or some people, when they shred things, they might shred those plastic credit cards in there, and that you certainly don't want plastic in your compost. So there were just too many contaminants from shredded paper. Same for the egg cartons. The top had that shiny paper. Some of them have the shiny paper on top. So still, like tear off the bottom. You can still put the bottom in the compost.
So if they don't really want food waste, that's what you're saying in the yard waste thing.
We should divert food waste, because it's one of the major causes of global warming is food waste in the landfill.
I've been putting it in the yard waste.
Keep putting your food waste in. They'll bear it at that facility.
Okay.
They just grumble.
What?
And they just grumble, and we're gonna let them grumble a little bit, right?
Right. So there are actually two compost facilities in the area. There's one that's closer than the one that Bainbridge Disposal takes our stuff to, and it's in Kingston. It's called Olympic Organics. and you'd have to talk to Bainbridge Disposal about why they use one versus the other. But Olympic Organics will willingly accept food waste. And so TNC's organic waste actually goes to Olympic Organics. Bainbridge Disposal hauls their waste to Olympic Organics because it's totally food. And our composter would not want a whole 40-yarder worth of food dumped at his place. So that's so in front of TNC, you've seen those compost bins, you've seen their landfill, recycling, compost combo receptacle. So you can put things in there that we might not be able to put in our regular yard waste because it goes to a different place. So
just to add another,
Yeah,
just
go
add
ahead,
another
Barbara.
layer of confusion and contradiction, you know, that we've got two separate composting streams on the island.
So I guess if you really wanted to, because I've actually checked with Jeff at Olympic Organics yesterday, and he would accept garbage, or he would accept pizza boxes from TNC. So if you really wanted to, you know, like you tear off the top part of your pizza box that is nice, clean, ungreased, and put that in your recycling. And then the bottom part, without the paper liner, without that plastic little table, just the greasy box, without any stickers on the box. Composters hate stickers, hate those fruit stickers. So no stickers on the pizza box. You can put that in, you could put that in TNC's compost, I suppose. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't want to inundate them, but
Well, and
Well, I want, yeah, go ahead.
realistically, I'm not going to do that, but you know, yeah, but it is, you
I
know,
wonder if there are things that we could do in sort of letter writing or whatever to say to Bainbridge Disposal that we would support the idea of them taking all of this yard waste to a different place, because we think that it's important for us to do that for climate and just waste. I don't know. What about advocacy and Zero Waste Bainbridge? Tell me a little bit about whether you guys have done any of that kind of political advocacy or would encourage us to do so.
I like Land Trust's model, which is they try not to be too political. But you know, we have a zero waste newsletter that comes out once or twice a month, and there are sometimes suggestions in there to, if you want to advocate to, you know, sign on to the support your state legislation, write to your legislator, and stuff like that. And I'm also going to be on the waste reduction committee that, I don't know if you have followed the new waste ordinance the city has put forward. So it expands on the recent state legislation. The recent state legislation did three main things. One, it's eliminating styrofoam coolers, food serviceware like plates and foam cups. And the third one is evading me at the moment, Barbara, if you can think of it.
Is it single-use serving utensils?
Yes, exactly. That people must, the language is customer affirmation. So you must ask the customer if they want a spoon, if they want a straw, if they want a lid before giving them that object. So the Bainbridge legislation goes a step further in that regard. They're saying, so in the state legislation, customer affirmation was if you as a customer walked over to the counter and took a napkin or took a utensil. But Bainbridge is saying, no, you can't have that stuff on the counter. You've got to put it behind the counter and then, you know, receive the request from the customer or ask them if they want it. So that's the first step of the legislation. And then the committee has been formed to develop the rest, which is, we'll focus on waste reduction. Like, how can we not have takeout boxes that go in the trash, for example, like maybe compostable food serviceware to that ordinance, something like that. So I guess in that way, Zero Waste is advocating because we're on the committee for it.
Tell me a little bit about your living situation.
Yeah, it's a small 5-unit complex. Some of the owners have been here for like 25 years, and they are very environmentally aware. So all of this was in place when I moved in a couple years ago, and it's just the culture of the HOA. Although I do confess, I dumpster dive we have our recycling container inside, and I still see things, you know, people will put in just like little random plastic things that they think are recyclable because they're plastic, and they're not, they're just garbage. So yes, I do haul them out, and then I might send an email out saying, please remember, you know, blah, blah,
So
blah.
is that the issue of the numbers in the plastic?
Right, which, you know, is just greenwashing, really. It's meaningless in terms of recyclability. It identifies what kind of plastic something is made from, but it doesn't have anything to do. It helps people imagine that there's an end market and another life for this single-use product.
But there isn't in most cases, so.
That's right.
It was something the plastic or the petrochemical industry wanted to get put on their products, so people would think they'd be able to recycle it if they bought it, which they usually can't.
Okay, and were you going to say something, Diana? Yeah, you have a bin there.
It's a little thing that just goes under my sink. It's lasted so long. It's plastic, but it's great plastic. It's a long use plastic. And all my vegetable and fruit waste goes in there, and then it goes out to my compost pile periodically. But we also have a yard waste container because baked goods and meat, dairy does not go into my home compost. So we put the other things in with the yard waste. And some people, the yard waste is a huge container, 96-gallon container. Some people share their yard waste with other, with neighbors. So that's a way to do it if, you know, you don't generate much organic waste, but you still don't want to put it in the trash or down your sink.
Excellent suggestions. Is there anything we haven't touched on that you want to make sure that you get the word out about? I will definitely put some links in about your email and so forth.
Well, we do have a trash and show coming up on July 25th. It's a Sunday. We usually have it at Islandwood, but not this year. It's going to be outside up on Hilltop between the East and West Grand Forests. So if you go to the Zero Waste website, there's a trash and show link. There's also a separate trash and show page, BI Trashin', it's called, BI Trashin', and you can get tickets there. So we encourage you to come. People from the community have made outfits that are from repurposed items, you know, of the, like umbrella fabric or, you know, other things. So it gives you ideas for what you can do to not buy clothing. Clothing is an industry that contributes to 10% of international greenhouse gas emissions. So it's a good thing to find or get ideas for reusing your old clothes.
Great. And I'll just mention that you also can, if they're in good shape and you're not going to wear them, donate them to the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center thrift store or shop here or both.
I heard somebody comment on the street yesterday, tourists walking by, and this man was joking, saying, well, I could go to the senior center thrift store. I'm a senior. But so do you do marketing to encourage, you know, that anybody can buy from them?
Anybody can buy from. Yes, we certainly welcome everybody. And in fact, we're the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center. Community is part of our name. So if you aren't willing to admit your seniorness, you can still be a part.